Bow, 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 boom, bow, 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 bow. Mount Rushmore, that big old monument located in South Dakota, with 4 dead guys on it. The 4 faces on it belong to 4 great American presidents. And one lesser known fact is that each face represents 4 things about the birth of the United States. George Washington represents the nation's birth. Thomas Jefferson represents its growth, good old Teddy Roosevelt for its development, and Lincoln for its preservation. Now, with all that boring history out of the way, I'm gonna find vague excuses to compare fictional video game characters with these values. But even more than that, I want to ask the question, if Valve characters had their own Mount Rushmore, who would be on it? Valve makes a lot of games, and a lot of their characters are icons within their own right. And sure, some of the faces on here is practically gonna be a gimme, but I still want to talk about why certain obvious picks belong on here, and as well also discussing other characters who I think deserve just as much recognition as Valve icons as the more obvious picks. And of course, I'm going to do my best to find parallels with these core values to the Valve characters that I pick, because after all, this is a quote-unquote video essay where I'm supposed to act all smart. Where I'm supposed to deconstruct and dissect the deeper meaning of things. Yeah, right. Fucking talking out of my ass over here for money. So, join me, Internet Wanderer, as I yap about a stupid mountain with stupid faces on it, trying to justify even more stupid video game characters on a comparable, metaphorical mountain. I'm getting really good at these transitions, holy shit.
Hey there, Internet Wanderer, my name is Argonax. In this channel, we make video reviews, essays, commentaries, and shorts. I hope you enjoy my stuff enough to do the YouTube things listed here, especially the liking and subscribing part, and special shout out to all the channel members who help keep the channel going. Their contributions mean a lot to me, and their support is extremely appreciated. But let's not dwell on this for too long, let's get back to the topic at hand.
So, with Mount Rushmore only having 4 faces on it, that means there's gonna be a lot of competition for not a lot of real estate. And before I start talking about my picks, I just need to lay down a couple of ground rules. Number 1, I will only be picking 1 character per franchise. Yes, I know this is rather unfortunate because certain franchises, Team Fortress, have a lot of iconic characters, many of whom could fill their own Mount Rushmores if I was feeling so inclined. Every day I get tested. If I was feeling so inclined, unfortunately I can only squeeze in 1 character per series. And not necessarily rule, but more so an attempt to farm engagement for you, dear internet viewer. If you have any thoughts or opinions, or if you disagree with any of the picks I have in this video, feel free to comment them down below. I want to get as many perspectives about this topic as I can, because I feel like asking people what their personal Mount Rushmores is a great way of seeing how they view video games and how they like the characters in that said video game. So, without any further ado, let's get into my first and probably most obvious pick.
Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility personnel.
Yeah, you could probably see this one coming a mile away. Gordon Freeman, the protagonist of Valve's first ever video game. He's a legacy character for Valve, first-person shooters, and gaming in general. And much like George Washington, they don't have balls. They fit the birth aspect pretty nicely for both, well, America and Valve as a whole. Gordon being the avatar the player uses for their first ever video game. The first main man, if you will. And further than just acting as the conduit for the story, Gordon also acts as the foundation for many gameplay systems that Valve would use in their future games. Gameplay mechanics as simple as the crouch jump, for example, debuted in the first Half-Life.
Jump! You won't even jump, look! Jump! You fucking idiot! Oh my god!
There were probably other games that did it before Gordon, but they don't count.
What the hell's a crouch jump?
This one seemingly simple mechanic is something that Valve would include in almost all of their FPS games moving forward. And it's rather funny because as far as I know, with maybe some exceptions like Halo, I guess, crouch jumping is something almost exclusive to Valve games.
Wow, you're not gonna believe it, I figured it out. This game has a bugged jumping mechanic. What you need to do is jump, and while you're jumping, crouch. And if you crouch while you're jumping, you can actually do jumps. See, I just did it. I jumped and crouched mid-jump and it worked. What the fuck did they do? Well, at least now I know what to do, but that was 25 minutes of torture. 25 minutes of torturous platforming gameplay because the jumping is bugged.
Another is their love for puzzles. Gordon is a scientist, a highly trained one at that, apparently. And making him, or the player, solve puzzles acts as a great way to break up the pacing, and as well to challenge Gordon, or in this case the player, mentally. Puzzles is something that's somewhat core to a lot of Valve video games, particularly the Portal franchise, but I'll cover that later when I get to it. Some might argue if Gordon is even a character at all, given that there is nothing defining about him, no personality traits, you don't even see him other than the box covers. But I would argue that his silence is a defining character trait in of itself. I would even go a step further and say that Gordon Freeman is the most iconic, true silent protagonist. There are a lot of silent protagonists in various other video games, but I would argue that most of them are either false silent protagonists or characters who are quite literally not a character in of themselves. Link doesn't count because Link actually talks quite often via speech bubbles or just talking straight up.
Oh boy! I'm so hungry, I could eat an Octorok!
Other silent protagonists, like, I don't know, the playable characters from Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, and 4, they aren't really characters. They are quite literally just insert random soldier who doesn't talk. The Dovahkiin doesn't count because you still talk. Even though you don't hear his voice, you talk to every NPC that you encounter. Just because there's no voice actor doesn't mean that you're a silent protagonist. Gordon's character is given to him almost retroactively by everyone around him.
Man, a few words, aren't you?
Gordon really has done a lot for the video game landscape, to the point that people can't just see a crowbar anymore and just not automatically think about him. It's kinda insane. Again, I don't really need to justify why Gordon is here. Gordon Freeman easily lands the first spot on the Valve Mount Rushmore. Before I move on to my second pick, I just want to talk about why certain characters, or in this case, certain franchise characters, are going to be excluded from this list. Namely, Dota characters and Counter-Strike characters, for two very different reasons. Firstly, for Counter-Strike, well, the simpler one is that Counter-Strike just straight up has no characters. They don't. They have terrorists and counter-terrorists. There's probably some niche character from Condition Zero from 2 decades ago. I don't care. No memorable characters, therefore no spot on this list. And the other one is Dota characters. And while I am extremely biased towards Dota, I would even argue that a lot of Dota characters have extremely well-crafted personalities and are memorable in their own right. Unfortunately, I would say it's a case of too many options. There's too many characters. There's too many good characters. That being said, I cannot in good conscience compare any of these characters to, well, Gordon Freeman or anybody else that I'm about to pick for this Mount Rushmore character list thing. But to my fellow Dota players in the audience, if I had to give a candidate for Dota, not that I am, but if I had to, I would say the best candidates would either be Juggernaut, because we see him in a lot of Dota posters, Axe, because, well, he's just kind of funny and, you know, really cool personality, Pudge, for the same reasons as Axe, but it also helps that he is the most played character in Dota, Dragonite, because he stars in the Netflix show, Invoker is also a pretty good choice. I guess you could throw in Anti-Mage as well, because he's a very popular character too. Maybe Phantom Assassin, because she's like the second most played or third most played. Either way, choose one of them. They could be the Dota representative, but unfortunately, Dota characters just don't make the cut. I'm sorry to say. For the second spot on this tier list, I'm gonna jump into the sister franchise of Half-Life, which is Portal. Now, Portal has a lot of... Wait, what? That's how many main characters there are in this entire franchise? Wow. Stiff competition. Whereas there's a lot of memorable characters, I will have to give it to GLaDOS. Now, some of you might ask, why not Shell, the silent protagonist from Portal? Well, you see, Shell is very similar to Gordon, but unfortunately, Gordon gets a pass, because, well, you know, he's the first, the OG. He came first, and therefore, unfortunately, he gets all the recognition. You know, it's kind of like a Neil Armstrong versus Buzz Aldrin situation. But strictly talking about the game, Portal, thematically, is a dark comedy puzzle game, and I think GLaDOS represents that kind of perfectly.
Did you know that people with guilty consciences are more easily startled by loud noises? I'm sorry, I don't know why that went off. Anyway, just an interesting science fact.
You see, in many ways, GLaDOS is kind of like the inverse of Gordon. Whereas Gordon is silent and the protagonist, GLaDOS is the opposite. She talks, although she's not quite a chatterbox. That title belongs to another Portal character. She talks quite often, and she is also the antagonist for the most part. GLaDOS, with her monotone voice and callous disregard for human life and life in general, is kind of just what makes her extremely memorable. Everything she says is etched into the memory of anyone who's ever played the Portal games.
Let's get to business. I hope you brought something stronger than a portal gun this time. Otherwise, I'm afraid you're about to become the immediate past president of the Being Alive Club.
To those in the audience who haven't played Portal, what is wrong with you? But if I had to describe her, she's basically like HAL 9000, but a girl and funny.
I have to go. Wait, this next test does require some explanation. Let me give you the fast version. There. If you have any questions, just remember what I said in slow motion. Test on your own recognizance. I'll be right back.
Now, the reason I believe she belongs in the number 2 slot for Mount Rushmore is because GLaDOS, and Portal as a whole, represents the growth aspect because they take one of the pillars of Half-Life, that being the pillar of physics, and I guess the pillar of puzzles, which Half-Life very much loves. These are gameplay mechanics and gameplay loops that the Half-Life games love to implement. And Portal takes these two pillars and turns them into the core gameplay loop of Portal. I'm saying a lot of P's right now, but if I had to include another P for Portal, it would be, I guess it's funny.
Sorry about the mess. I've really let the place go since you killed me. By the way, thanks for that.
Sarcasm self-test complete.
Which, in case I haven't made clear, Portal is a very funny game. Portal is rather minimalistic with the characters that it presents to us. In fact, you could probably count the amount of main cast characters in one hand alone. But it is stiff competition. Between Cave Johnson, Wheatley, and, well, Shell herself, GLaDOS easily stands as a towering figure above them all.
I had a pretty good life. And then you showed up. You dangerous, mute lunatic.
And I guess as a bit of a spoiler for the rest of this video, she is the only antagonist on this Valve Mount Rushmore. Bit of trivia for you, but did you know that the AI voice in the original Pacific Rim movie is also voiced by Ellen McLean, the voice actress of GLaDOS?
Pilots, ready to connect.
Let's go fishing.
2 pilots engaged in neural bridge. Ready to activate the Jaeger in 3, 2...
I'm pretty sure the director also said that he specifically chose her because he really liked the Portal games. And screw it, I might as well bring up this conspiracy theory as well. I've heard some people say that the reason that they added Portal 1 and 2 onto the Switch was so Valve could show off the differences in performance from the Steam Deck to the original Switch. I would want to believe that that's true because that sounds extremely petty and I'm all for it. Unfortunately, the Switch 2 is coming out and I'm not sure the Steam Deck can keep up with it anymore. At least until Valve makes the Steam Deck 2 or something, I don't know. With all that being said, GLaDOS easily earns herself the number 2 spot on the Valve Mount Rushmore. Now, before I cover the 3rd slot on the Valve Mount Rushmore, I want to go through a lightning round of mini Valve categories that could also belong on the Rushmore. I'm going to go through these real quick, so feel free to swap out any of these if you disagree. Let's go. The Valve Weapons Mount Rushmore. Crowbar, portal gun, AWP, and rocket launcher. Valve Sound Effects Mount Rushmore. The Valve Intro, the TF2 Double Donk, Counter-Strike win announcements, and Alex's joke in Half-Life 1 Episode 1 about the zombies.
What the hell is that? Combine zombie. That's like a zombine, right? Zombine, get it?
For this slot, I'm going to jump straight onto the 4th face of the mountain, that being the face of Perseverance, where Blinken would normally be. And for that, I can think of no better character than the Heavy from Team Fortress 2. Now listen, all of the Team Fortress 2 mercenaries are iconic in their own right. All 9 of these dumbasses have literally increased the number of memes on the internet by a substantial amount. It's probably quantifiable.
I fear no man. But that thing, it scares me.
But out of all of these 9 mercenaries, who again, legendary in their own right, there's only one de facto mascot, and that guy is Heavy. He's on the box art. He's the most well-known. He's Putis, you know? People love Heavy. And him representing perseverance is kind of twofold. It's fitting because, well, the game he's in, Team Fortress 2, has had so many hurdles and setbacks, and despite all of these things, from hacking, bot invasions, neglect from Valve, the game has stayed alive, all thanks to its community. Team Fortress 2 really is an anomaly when it comes to live service games, because if it was any other video game, it would have died a long time ago, but it just doesn't. This game's community quite literally will not let this game die. In other words,
good news, we're not dying. We are going to live forever.
So many games have had their start and end, whereas Team Fortress 2 just keeps persevering. It is legitimately such a sight to behold. And I think Heavy, being the dedicated tank of the game, is also a great representation of that. He perseveres where other classes just get critted out of existence. You know, except for Demo Man Crit Pills. Or sniper headshots or spy backstabs. Hey, those don't count. He's the tank, allegedly.
I don't want to play Heavy anymore.
It's also rather quite the paradox because most people will agree that Heavy is in fact the mascot of Team Fortress. He could be the best representative of the entire Team Fortress cast as a whole, but it's interesting because Heavy is easily the least played class in the entire game, by far. Casuals don't want to play him, and pros don't want to play him. People kind of see him as boring, slow, and just not really viable most of the time. And despite that, people still love Heavy. Is it also a coincidence that most of the fan-made animations about TF2 have Heavy as the main character? I think not.
It is good day to be not dead.
Pow! You are dead.
I'm dead.
Seriously, if you haven't seen these things, go watch them. They're hilarious.
6. Now!
So whether that be persevering in the face of developer neglect or outside forces trying to shut your game down for good, or you trying to persevere being willed away by the enemy team while your medic desperately tries to keep you alive, the Team Fortress 2 Heavy will persevere. And it is for that reason that his face belongs on the Valve Mount Rushmore. And before I go on to talk about the last character in this Mount Rushmore, I just want to bring up the honorable mentions. Like I said in the previous section with Heavy, literally any of the Team Fortress 2 mercenaries could have an argument to also belong on the Mount Rushmore. That being said, I think some TF2 mercenaries have a bigger claim than others. So while Heavy did make it onto the Mount Rushmore, if there was gonna be a runner-up, in my opinion, it would have gone to the Soldier, for many other reasons. Whereas Heavy is the least played character in Team Fortress 2, Soldier is the most played. He is also almost equally beloved in the fandom, just as much as Heavy. He can serve as the mascot in his own right, and as well, it could also serve as a way to pay respects to the late Rick May, the voice actor of Soldier, who passed away back in 2020. But barring the Soldier, there could also be an argument for the Spy and the Scout, because they play prominent roles in both the Expiration Date cinematic and the TF2 comics. Whereas all the other mercenaries unfortunately don't get as much screen time or as much love compared to these 4 characters. Moving away from Team Fortress, other honorable mentions from the Half-Life universe could have gone to Alex and the G-Man. Alex just because, well, she's Alex. Everybody loves Alex. She got her own video game. She's an amazing female video game character. In fact, she is my favorite female video game character. And G-Man, I would actually say, is my absolute favorite Valve antagonist. More so than GLaDOS, but unfortunately, we can only include one character per franchise, and unfortunately, Gordon overshadows G-Man in my opinion. That being said, a lot of people do like G-Man, and if you want to replace Gordon with G-Man in your own personal Mount Rushmore, I wouldn't blame you. But talking about Portal, if it wasn't GLaDOS, another potential candidate could have been Wheatley, but I think most people prefer GLaDOS if I'm being completely honest.
Let there be light. That's God. It's quoting God.
And finally, for the honorable mentions, I will move on to Left 4 Dead. Now, Left 4 Dead has, well, 8 characters, 8 survivors, and they are all memorable and lovable in their own right.
between the 4 characters of the 2 games, all of them kind of filling the same similar team dynamic and archetypes. For example, you have the lovable optimist, the cynical pessimist, the team leader, and of course, the most important team archetype of all, women. This is so stupid. Left 4 Dead's characters and survivors are all amazing, but if I had to pick one who stands above all the others, there's no contest. And that one candidate, coincidentally, is also the last slot on my Mount Rushmore. That being William Bill Overbeck, the leader of Left 4 Dead 1. I'll keep this section brief. Bill is a badass Vietnam veteran, and so far is the only canonical dead survivor of the Left 4 Dead games. He's also easily the most universally beloved character. Bill is just awesome. He's not gonna let something like old age stop him from killing zombies. And as well, Bill manages to bring a fatherly warmth to his performance, which is rather unfortunate because Bill's voice actor, the late Jim French, also passed away back in 2017. He's also known for voicing Elder Titan in Dota. An amazing man for an amazing character. What else can I say? The position that Bill is supposed to take in the Rushmore is where Teddy Roosevelt is supposed to be, which is the Rushmore slot for development. Shit, I didn't actually write anything for this part. Let's just say Bill and Left 4 Dead developed the co-op shooter genre because no other co-op shooter has been able to surpass Left 4 Dead in terms of quality. I don't fucking know, man. Just think of a stupid parallel video essay, blah, 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 blah. Intelligent yapping, blah, blah, blah. And here we have it, Internet Wanderer. My 4 picks for my Valve Mount Rushmore. What do you guys think? Do you agree with the choices that I have here? If you could swap somebody out with another Valve character, who would you put? Comment your thoughts down below. That's gonna be it for me, Internet Wanderer. Thanks for watching. Do the YouTube things.